viewers of the Pioneer. I hope you're healthy and well. They said enjoyable, but I'm going to say well because enjoyable doesn't make sense. But as the Pioneer team, we continue to share our current news about Russia-Ukraine war with you. So we will share with you a very important developments in this war. As you know, the Russian people often express their dissatisfaction with the Putin administration and the decisions taken. So, however, it is not only the Russian people who are unhappy with President Vladimir Putin and his policies. The people of neighbouring countries are also uncomfortable with Putin's policies and his sphere of influence. This situation may have serious effects on the political and economic stability in the region. We will continue follow these developments closely and provide you with the most up-to-date information. We're talking about the region in Georgia. In the past, with the decision of the President of Russian Federation Vladimir Putin, the Russian army intervened in this region and tried to establish dominance. Today, Georgia is still not officially Russian territory, but the effects of the Russian Federation are still felt. However, it is understood that the Georgian people have recently developed a reaction against this situation. The Georgian people, who don't want Georgian lands to be under the Russian pressure and influence, recently organized a large-scale protest. So, interestingly, this protest was also supported by the Russian people. Let's come together to analyze the current developments about these protests in Georgia. As the Pioneer team, we continue to share our reports on Russia-Ukraine war with you, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily reports. You can also support me and my team by using the Super Thanks button below the videos. Thank you so much for your support. Let's start if you're ready, the Pioneer reports. So, the war between Russia and Ukraine is of a great importance, not only on the front line, but also behind the front line. While the Russian armed forces are continuing their offensives to break Ukraine's resistance, the Ukrainian armed forces are endeavoring to keep it alive under all the circumstances. The Russian army certainly has some distinct advantages, especially in the terms of ammunition and weapon stocks. However, there is one vital thing that Ukraine has that Russia lacks: moral support. So Ukraine's armed forces enjoy strong support not only from its own people but also from free societies around the world. Thanks to this support, Ukraine's resistance is getting stronger every day, and the Russian armed forces are facing a difficult situation. We know that they have had some limited successes on the battlefield, but on the whole world, like basically in general, the successes of the Ukrainian armed forces is becoming more and more evident, and we can even say that they are more effective than the Russian army. So the perspective can be further clarified by considering the attitude of the Russian people towards their own army. Of course, the Russian people are not alone in their opposition to the Russian armed forces. Other people with whom they have historical enmity also stand against the Russian army. One of these people is the Georgian people. Georgian lands were occupied by the Russian Federation in the past years, and a major war was fought, albeit for a short time. But this situation is based on the historical enmity, and the Georgian people have not forgotten these events. However, the Georgian leadership is allegedly trying to adopt an attitude close to Russia. So, according to recent reports, Georgian citizens took the streets to organize an anti-Russian protest demonstration. So allegedly, the pro-Russian Georgian government was working on a new draft law. This bill would ensure that foreign mission chiefs and other critically important agents would have the right to move freely on the Georgian territory. However, the Georgian government has allegedly taken this decision on the directive of the President of the Russian Federation Vladimir Putin, and therefore it was thought to be in favor of the Russians. But this situation caused the reactions of the Georgian people and caused them to take the streets as they had done before. So in the past, the Georgian people had organized protests in a similar situation, and the Georgian government had announced that it had abandoned this draft law. So this was allegedly a deception, and the Georgian government only tried to elevate the public reaction. In recent days, it has emerged that this draft law is back on the agenda, and this situation has brought the Georgian people to the streets again. So, recent events in Georgia seem to be signaling a major upheaval in the country. Thousands of Georgians gathered in the city squares to protest against a draft law, chanting slogans. They oppose the changes planned by the government, and it is claimed that the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, was also watching with interest during these demonstrations. So it is reported that Georgian police intervened harshly against the demonstrators and many citizens were subjected to violence. Civil society organizations also joined the protests and raised their voices against the changes planned by the government. However, officials of these organizations were also beaten and detained by the police. So the focus of the draft law was on one of the articles concerning non-governmental organizations. Many anti-Russian organizations operating in Georgia are said to raise public awareness against Russia's authoritarian policies. According to the allegations, the draft law sought to restrict the activities of all non-governmental organizations, especially anti-Russian organizations. It is said that Vladimir Putin, in particular, has a negative attitude towards non-governmental organizations and that he had directives in the preparation of the draft law. So the protests of the Georgian people attracted attention not only within Georgia but also in Russia. With the protests in Georgia not yet over, the people in Russia also took to streets and organized protests and support demonstrations, but drawing attention to the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. Allegedly, the demonstrations in Russia took place simultaneously with the actions of Georgian citizens. However, press censorship in Russia has made it difficult to find clear information about these protests despite the censorship. According to some news sources, 23 Russian citizens were detained during the protests in Russia. So for President Putin, continuation of the war in Ukraine is still of a critical importance. Putin risks losing face if he fails to successfully complete his attempt to invade Ukraine. This makes Putin nervous, on the edge, and makes him more likely to make mistakes. So in particular, the fact that Ukraine put up a tougher resistance than expected, and that Putin's predictions did not come true has caused him a sense of humiliation. In the meantime, a large part of Russian population is also awakening. So especially under the influence of the Georgian people's protests, people in Russia are becoming more vocal against Putin's rules. So what do you think? Do you think Putin is interfering in Georgia's internal affairs? How can the protests in Georgia change the political dynamics in the region? And how might the support of the Russian people for Georgian people affect Putin's foreign policy? Let me know in the comments, because you know that I read and I care a lot about all of your comments.